While the world was still reeling from the trauma of a massive global war and everybody everywhere swore never to let such a nightmare happen again, guess what? Just 20 years later, it did. In this video, we'll explore the surprising connections that led to both World War I and World War II. These major events in human history, though appearing different, share intricate ties due to a complex network of causes. So let's uncover the hidden connections and shed light on how history repeated itself with catastrophic consequences. But remember, this isn't just a dull history lesson, it's about why all of this is relevant today, so stay tuned until the end. World War II stands out as one of the most catastrophic and, in many examples, the cruelest conflicts in human history. When viewed through our current lens, it appears unimaginable that anyone would deliberately initiate such a devastating war. Surprisingly, many people of that era found it equally shocking. In certain regions, particularly Europe, the wounds from the First World War had yet to heal, and 2 decades later, it tragically occurred once more. Historians and people alike used to think the causes of these two wars were completely separate, but now they see that they are closely connected. When Germany became united during the Franco-Prussian War of 1871 to 1872, it quickly became a wealthy and powerful nation. However, because it joined the global stage relatively late, it didn't receive the recognition and influence it believed it deserved. Germany was excluded from major trade networks and couldn't expand its colonies. In effect, Kaiser Wilhelm and the German government felt they weren't given the respect they thought they should have. German frustration was just one factor leading to World War I, but it was a significant one. Unfortunately, Germany's efforts to increase its influence during the war were unsuccessful, and they were defeated by the Entente powers. This only deepened the divide between how Germany saw itself and its actual position in the world. The Great War, as it was known back then, was extremely expensive for the victorious nations. They placed the entire blame for the war on Germany, even though there were other huge factors involved. Consequently, the winning countries, particularly Britain and France, were eager for revenge. This led to the peace treaty that concluded the war, placing a greater emphasis on punishing Germany rather than creating a stable and lasting peace. As a result, the treaty included some clauses that many Germans found humiliating. The victors not only blamed Germany for the war, but also demanded compensation, forcing Berlin to pay large war reparations. These financial demands were crippling, and France also insisted on receiving excessive quantities of coal, which proved difficult for the defeated nation to provide. To make matters worse, certain parts of Germany were taken away and handed over to other countries. However, the United States played a role in moderating the harsh terms of the agreement. Due to their insistence, Germany was permitted to rebuild its economy and maintain its sovereignty to some extent. The defeated side was also allowed to maintain a small but formidable military force. The peace agreement had so many design flaws. It was neither forgiving enough to fully integrate Germany, nor harsh enough to prevent the defeated nation from recovering and seeking revenge. American President Woodrow Wilson recognized many of the key factors that led to World War I and sought to prevent their recurrence. President Woodrow Wilson suggested establishing a League of Nations, somewhat similar to today's United Nations, to assist countries in resolving their disputes. Unfortunately, this initiative faced opposition. Wilson was in the midst of promoting the idea to Congress and the American people when he suffered a stroke. As a result, the effort to join this international organization was unsuccessful. The League of Nations didn't strongly criticize Germany for breaking the Versailles Treaty, Japan for its actions in Manchuria, or Italy for invading Abyssinia. The League was too weak to prevent future conflicts. Instead of cooperating with it, countries like Japan and Germany left the League and didn't pay attention to its decisions. Before World War I, Germany had a partial democracy. After the war, they became a full democracy with Weimar as the capital. But World War I damaged faith in democratic systems worldwide. Some leaned toward communism, while others feared government control and turned to fascism. Weimar Germany was stuck between these forces. It managed to survive despite war reparations and rising extremism, but was eventually brought down by the Great Depression, which caused severe inflation and poverty. Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party took advantage of the weak Weimar government. They blamed reparations for Germany's economic issues and used middle-class fears of communism and anti-Semitism to gain support. This allowed the Nazis to pursue an aggressive, racist, expansionist agenda. When Hitler and the Nazis rose to power, a lot of people and leaders in liberal democracies had already realized the injustices of the Versailles Treaty. The emergence of extreme nationalism and anti-Semitism in Germany, however, accelerated this overdue recognition. Surprisingly, this delayed but accurate acknowledgement of the problems with the treaty created its own set of issues. The harsh terms of the treaty had unfairly burdened the Weimar Republic, and it was important for the former Entente powers to support and strengthen this government. However, when the Nazis came to power, the democracies needed a strong policy to counter their ambitions. Instead, they let their guard down and tried to appease Hitler to avoid war. The British approach was especially problematic. Hitler made a series of escalating demands and took actions in the 1930s to bolster Germany's military and territorial position. Despite his clear expansionist intentions outlined in the book Mein Kampf, the leader in London saw this as mere posturing. Successive governments, notably the one led by Neville Chamberlain, turned a blind eye to Germany's increasing provocations. Initially, Hitler's demands seemed to revolve around reclaiming lost territory, which was categorized as revanchism. In 1936, Germany remilitarized the industrial Ruhr region, a clear violation of the Versailles Treaty. The lack of response from France and the paralyzed League of Nations encouraged Hitler to continue his brinkmanship. In 1938, Germany annexed Austria, even though it had never been a part of Germany. Many observers accepted this annexation because Austria and Germany shared a common language and culture. World War II had two major theaters of conflict, the European and the Pacific theaters, and both played significant roles in causing the war. Similarly to Germany, Japan was dissatisfied with the peace agreements ending World War I, despite having ironically fought alongside Wilhelm in Germany. However, the Allies failed to acknowledge the sacrifices made by Japan. Japan became more militaristic due to frustration with their global status and the impact of the 1929 stock market crash. They wanted to break free from Western colonialism and trade dominance, so they sought to expand their empire. Starting in 1931, Japan increased its control over Manchuria, a part of China. By 1937, they rejected Chinese sovereignty and launched a full-scale war against China. In 1938, Hitler aimed to take over the Sudetenland, a mountainous region in Czechoslovakia, citing the presence of ethnic Germans there, although it was important for Czechoslovakia's security. British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain and French Premier Édouard Daladier negotiated with Nazi Germany in Munich, agreeing to the German annexation of the Sudetenland. Chamberlain famously declared peace for our time, but Hitler broke the agreement. In March 1939, German troops entered Prague, ending Czechoslovakian independence. Realizing they had been deceived, the French and British began preparing for war. The Soviet Union, which had been a close ally of Czechoslovakia, adjusted its foreign policy after the Western Allies abandoned the country. On August 23, 1939, the Soviet Union signed a non-aggression pact with Nazi Germany, removing the most overt German provocation. Then, on September 1, 1939, Germany invaded Poland under a flimsy pretext, leading both London and Paris to declare war on Nazi Germany. The policy of appeasement by the British and French was a major factor in leading the way to war. Nevertheless, above all else, it was the lingering, unhealed wounds of World War I that virtually ensured a dark follow-up.